Thank you so much for being here. I know this is like the long haul, right? This is Friday afternoon, it's late. You've heard lots of different things, but I hope that you can get something extremely tangible. This is something, these skills that I'm going to talk about today, I told this to a couple people yesterday after, I think about these things almost every day. I try to assess what I'm needing, and I try to figure out what somebody else is needing, despite whatever they have said to me. It's like I'm a detective. Okay, they said they want this, but what is it they're really needing behind what they're saying? And am I communicating well enough that someone can understand my need that relates to a basic universal need that we've talked about this past week? So I know that perhaps everyone hasn't been here all of this week, so that I have a little bit of review and more of an introduction to nonviolent communication, which is the communication style that really has changed my life, and that's why I'm wanting to share it with you. So, long title, How to Ask for What You Need, Ask What We Need Without Making the Other Person Defensive. I'm guessing, if I asked you right now, that you have asked someone for something you need or want, and others have not always responded happily and said, yes, of course, I would love to do that for you, right? So this is an area I think all of us can improve on. So I've introduced myself before, but I wanted to do it just again. I am trained as a mediator. I've studied international policy. I've worked at BYU for several years, helping people work through conflicts in the Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution. I happened to speak with them yesterday, and they said that they are definitely willing to talk with you. As when I worked on campus, this was just last week that I finished, by the way, I met regularly with people even from the community. I'd answer calls, people had family situations, so I've asked two of the best mediators that I know that work there, and they're happy to answer your questions. So if you want more contact information, I'm happy to share that with you. I am just starting a PhD. Everybody has a midlife crisis, right? So I've always wanted to do it. That's what I'm doing now. So I'll be studying religion and development with young adults. So we talked about this in one of the classes we've had before, but I want to reiterate, communication is not merely sending out a message. Effective communication implies you sent out a message, the other person's received it, and they have interpreted the message correctly. Have you ever sent an email, a text, left a voicemail, and the other person really misunderstood what you meant, took it the wrong way, thought you were rude, whatever? That implies that true communication has not happened, right? So each of us have the challenge, I believe in mortality, to learn how to communicate effectively. My guess is we probably communicated differently in the life before, and that we may communicate differently in the life to come, but it behooves us to learn how to communicate so that other people understand our need and that we learn to help other people understand their own need. So you have many tools. We've talked about this. Even when I was counseling with someone after the presentation yesterday, maybe you talk with someone in person. Maybe that person doesn't have skills or the ability to be confronted by you in person. Maybe it's a letter. Maybe it's, let's take a walk, and I don't even bring up the subject. I focus on the relationship before I bring up something difficult, right? We have many, I think of the brother Jared with his stones and coming to the Lord and asking him to light them up. Think through your options. So I'm going to provide you with some options today. We've talked about conflict and contention. Elder Uchtdorf spoke of this directly on Tuesday during his devotional. Conflict is inevitable because you are unique spirit children. You're children of God, created with unique identities, personalities, temperaments, interests, styles. You are going to conflict even with the people that you love the most, right? Even with the people you love the most, and that's fine. That's just normal and natural, and we can't avoid it. But contention is when we have hostile feelings because we are different. I learned something about you, and I think, I can't associate with her. Oh, she thinks that? No. Right? I've set aside this person, and maybe I have angry feelings about it, hostile feelings. But remember, we said anger is not necessarily bad, right? It's that alarm clock. Contention implies hostility. I'm weaponizing our differences to fight you. I want to win. So, who are we? If we're called as disciples of Jesus Christ, we are identified by our peaceable walk with the children of men. That means it's not just what your covenant says, but it's how you behave within that covenant that demonstrates whether you're a peaceable follower of Jesus Christ. I wanted to just read this from Moroni. He has this perspective as he's compiling the records, abridging them, trying to find out of thousands of years what's the most important message that he can relay. Don't you find it interesting that those last few chapters are Moroni frantically, pulling out the words of Mormon and saying, "Wherefore I would speak unto you that are of the church," that's you, us, "that are the peaceable followers of Christ, and that have obtained a sufficient hope, by which ye enter into the rest of the Lord. From this time henceforth until you shall rest with him in heaven." Isn't that interesting? That the rest of the Lord is when? Here. It could be here and now, not just as he distinguishes with him in heaven. "And now, my brethren and sisters, I judge these things of you because of your peaceable walk with the children of men." So, we know this is the goal. Emily, just tell me how to do it. I know that's what you're thinking, okay? So we talked about having 5 choices in conflict. So on Tuesday, we talked about how we go from cooperative and assertive. Assertive means I try to get what I want. I either avoid you and don't help anyone get what they want. I may accommodate and give you the thing that you have desired or demanded of me. Compromise implies I give up something that I want, you give up some part of what you want, and then we both get probably half. Remember the orange, if you were here before? I'm getting half of what I want. Accommodating, I give in to you, and then competing, that would be I'm standing up for what I want. It does not mean that you are aggressive and hostile. You could be. But I could simply, like we talked about on Tuesday, I could simply be sitting down at a lunch counter and by my actions ask you, with my body language and where I'm sitting, please serve me food as a normal person, right? That's a competitive measure. And we talked about how Jesus Christ in his life was often competitive, but not hostile, right? So that you can be assertive and profess your needs. Collaborating, we talked about the benefit of, we try all these other 4 ways and they don't work. So it's usually a sign, if you've tried the other 4 ways and it still hasn't gone away, that you need to address collaboration. This is an ongoing issue. You can seek assistance to collaborate more effectively. Oftentimes people have tried and it hasn't worked, and that's sometimes where you get a third party to assist you. So why do we try to resolve conflict? We do it because we have needs. Each of us are born and we have gifts and talents, but we have needs. Think about how long it takes to raise a human child. And maybe some of you are like, I thought it was 18 years, but it keeps going, right? Like there are ongoing needs, but whether you're a child, a parent, someone in between, all of us have needs. And we talked about from Maslow's hierarchy, and I put this up with the highest being helping somebody else achieve their need, which may be, if you're sitting right here, it may be one of your needs. How can I help this other person realize who they really are and become themselves, who they were meant to be? So, asking the question, what needs of yours are usually being met? I'm reading a fantastic book called The Power of Bad. And you're like, why would you read that? It's actually how we're wired somewhat to focus on what we don't have or what's going wrong. And so I'm asking you to, in a very premeditated way, yes, identify your unmet need, but take the time also to recognize what needs of yours are being met. Because your brain naturally is trying to push on and focus on the things that are not going right in your life. Perhaps as a society, that's what we're doing most of all, right? We're focusing on the gaps and not the things that we have, the gains. So if you think about the needs that aren't being met, what difference would it make in your life if some of those core needs were met? Who would you be? How would you feel when you walked into a room if those main goals of yours were being met, as opposed to not? I think each of us have those times of our life where it may change, right? It's kind of ebbs and flows. We call it trials. But if you can begin to think of yourself in terms of the needs being met or not met, it's going to allow you to communicate more effectively. So, how do we often communicate our needs? We may be very, very sincere. And if you're taking a picture of this, these are not the things that you want to do, okay? Why can't you just listen for a second? It's like all you care about is money. How could you be so insensitive? Doesn't she ever consider how I feel about it? Don't you dare do that. Those all are needs statements. But if I say that, I can't remember your name in the, what's your name? Karine. Okay, Karine, if I say, don't you dare do that, what's her automatic response? Okay, that's my little sign. She's gonna get defensive. I may be very scared. Don't do that. Like I'm worried, but I convey it in a way that she is very unlikely to want to do what I say, right? It serves the exact opposite purpose of why I would share my need. So I think it's easy to see those needs, like I'm sensitive, I don't want you to hurt my feelings. So I say, don't be so insensitive, right? But the person I say that to is gonna what? I call it putting up your dukes, and then they're gonna fight me somehow and show how sensitive they actually are to me, which doesn't serve my purposes, or they're gonna tell me I'm just as insensitive. And so we're gonna get in a war, right? We're just gonna go back and forth. Both of them totally ineffective. I can be justified. Do you remember I talked about that? You can be as justified as you want in saying something like this, but if you want anything to change, you better, I don't know, remember it, but don't do this, okay? So, the purpose of nonviolent communication is to help people learn to create connection and to collaborate based on honesty and empathy. We talk a lot about empathy, sympathy, compassion in our culture. Empathy is, I'm trying to go back down this ladder and understand from your perspective what your needs are, okay? So from nonviolent communication, I'm trying to get something universal so we know we're kind of interacting as humans, seeing each other as humans, not as objects. Oh, sorry. You've seen this slide before too, if you've been here before. You basically have 4 options in conflict, meaning you can blame yourself. Someone starts shouting at you and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm such a bad person. I always inspire people to shout at me, whatever. You can turn in the depression side, because that's really what depression is. Oh, I'm to blame. So it could be outward anger, blaming somebody else, or it could just be turned inside. But we want to get to the point where we're sensing our own feelings and needs, and then we're helping other people when we're stable. I like to think of it like the oxygen in an airplane. I've got my own needs, I figured them out, I understand what's going on inside of me, and then I have the capacity, in a way, to understand somebody else's needs and listen to them. So, these are the 4 steps. They look super easy. They're gonna take you some practice. The first is to share a concrete observation without an evaluation. Be a scientist. If somebody else were in the room, they might have the same observation. Oh, looked like you dropped that spoon. Butterfingers, lazy, whatever I want to throw in there. If I just say, oh, you dropped the spoon, right? That doesn't have to be positive or negative. And we're going to go through all of these, all different examples of these, okay? Expressing accurate personal feelings. I'm going to talk about what's going on in me. Do you remember, if you were here yesterday, we talked about anger in my little preschool graduation thing? I became angry, but I had to do a needs assessment, and if you recall, I figured out that I was lonely. So in this case, I might say, I noticed that all the other families were together and they had multiple people, and it seemed like they were celebrating, and I was just by myself. I felt really lonely sitting there because I needed to know that it wasn't just me that cared about being with our daughter at this important event, right? Would you be willing, when I ask, for something really special, would you be willing to come with me to that event so I don't feel so lonely, right? So that's what we're trying to get to, is that kind of conversation. So we connect our feeling with a need. You may be familiar with research. They call them confederates in a social science study, that they're part of the lab, and they have a line for a copy machine. And they have people come in and try to cut in line for a copy machine. And if you come in and just say, I want to make a copy, how likely do you think people are to let you cut in line? Like, it's almost like zero. But if you come in and say, hey, I'm late for a class, can I cut in line? You'd be surprised, it goes way up. And then if you have an even more legitimate reason, it may go up from there. So have your reason. You're trying to connect. Don't just say the feeling, connect it with a need, and then you're going to make a request, like you heard me say, right? Will you come with me? Be very concrete and specific. So now we're going into a little bit more labor. So share what you observe. This means, instead of saying, so this is the ability to articulate what is happening that either is or is not meeting your needs without adding an evaluation. So, no to blame. You never return my calls. What is likely to be someone's response if I say that? You never return my calls. Yes, I do. I always do. Remember? So I have none of my needs met, and then I've made someone angry with me, right? So I've started a little fire. Instead, I say, I did not hear back from you the 2 times I left messages with you last week. Does someone have to get mad about that? Maybe they could, but they're a lot less likely. You're trying to be specific, and you are bringing it up because it's an issue. You are not bringing this up to show that you're awesome and they're not, right? You bring up this observation because you're going to go through each step to improve your life and make connection with the other person. That's why you do it. So, here is the grand test. Let's see what we can think. Let's see together if we can figure out what's effective, what's not. John was angry with me yesterday for no reason. Is that an observation, or is there an evaluation attached? Right? It's obvious. When you look at something on a screen, everybody's like, oh, of course. But how often do we add in that little, like, I'm going to, stick it to you, right? I'm just going to show that you're the bad person. Last night, Anne bit her fingernails while we talked. It's observation. Maybe I don't like her biting her fingernails. Maybe Anne's my daughter, and I have something, some beef with it. My boss didn't ask for my opinion during the meeting. It's an observation. Because maybe I'm really shy, which I'm not, and I'm glad that my boss didn't ask, but maybe I had prepared something special and then my boss didn't ask me. I don't know if it's bad or good, right? So my dad is a good man. Evaluation, even if it's positive, right? Julie works too much. Valuation. You guys are so good. Yeah. Okay. Jack was the first to leave work every day this week. It's an observation. What if I know his wife has cancer, right? But what if I think he might be skipping out and he hasn't helped with a group project for a couple weeks, right? Good or bad? My son often doesn't brush his teeth. It's an observation. It has a tricky word in there. Often because what if I say to my sweetheart, my husband, I say, hey, I want you to make dinner more often. And he's thinking, hey, once a month, that's good. And I'm like thinking 2-3 times a week. We're going to have some conflict, right? Some differences that matter to one or both of us. So the more specific you can be with your observation, the better, right? And the more likely the other person is going to accept it as real, factual, right? So the last one, my aunt complains when I talk with her. It's an evaluation, because what if I'm actually, okay, so Sherilyn, remind me of your name again. Carrie, okay, so you're listening to me. I got it wrong, didn't I? Yeah, anyway, so I'm talking to my aunt, and she just happens to give me a health summary from the 3 doctor's appointments she went to last week. She's just thinking she's given me, like, the news, but another person, I'm just like, that complaining. Nobody wants to be a complainer, right? That's a negative word in our language. So we're really good with observations and evaluations. This is probably one of the easier parts, okay? So second step is to identify and express accurate feelings. We tend to overuse certain words like happy, sad, mad, I'm really angry. Fun little story. Again, like, I have good stories about my husband, but this one, when we were first married, he thought it'd be fun if he hid behind the bushes when I was coming home at night, and if he would jump out and see what my reaction would be. I usually don't yell, but I did. And I was like, you will never do that again, right? I was furious, right? Furious was probably, or I was shocked. I was surprised, right? Expand the vocabulary to help the other person understand what that did for you, right? It's not that you're trying to incite them, you're trying to inform, right? That was my experience. That was not his experience. I'm sure he was really excited to see what I would do, right? So, excited in a different way. But did he do it again? No, right? He's a very smart man. Anyway, identify your accurate feelings. So, a few cautions. Distinguish your feelings from your thoughts. It is not an accurate personal feeling to say, I want to slap you. We all laugh, but we do that sometimes. We're like, I want to hit something, right? Is that a feeling? No, that's an action, a thought about a possible action, right? So beware of that. It's not going to help the other person connect with you, right? I want to slap you. Oh, I'm sorry you feel like slapping me today, right? Like, it's not going to go over. You're not going to create connection. Distinguish between what we feel and what we think we are. Even making a statement, like say I come to you and I say, I feel worthless. Okay, so what is the other person supposed to do? Are they supposed to then be your cheerleader and tell you all the reasons why you do have worth, and then you never get down to the need? You just have someone kind of like telling, oh, no, you're not worthless. Like you have, it's kind of like I'm putting out a judgment about what somebody else would make about me. And then distinguish between what we feel and how we think others will react or behave towards us. This is a little tricky. How often have we said, I feel rejected, I feel neglected, I feel like you don't understand me? Who is doing the misunderstanding, the neglecting, and the rejecting? Who's doing that? The other person. So I'm actually, if I'm expressing that as my personal accurate need, I'm actually making a judgment about the other person. So if someone loves me, which I hope there are people, they would say, no, I do understand you. It actually makes them defensive. I don't neglect you. I'm not rejecting you. And then I feel rejected because then they're trying to prove their point. Does that make sense? It's really subtle, but it's a very different thing to make a judgment of somebody else and how they feel about you. Do you remember the key point from yesterday? Nobody wants to be told how they feel or what they think. Each of us is basically the expert on ourselves. Do not tell people what they think or feel. They will become defensive. That's just my experience. So, build a rich vocabulary. I already talked about this: happy, sad, mad. I'm frustrated, I'm confused, I'm surprised, I'm shocked, I'm furious, I'm grieved, I'm insulted, I'm nervous, I'm energized, I'm super irritated, I'm cranky, okay? If you're a parent and you've been up all night with a small child, you can say you're angry, you'll get angry, but oftentimes I'm cranky, like I'm just, kind of comatose. I feel like I'm just walking through, a room. Be specific. Allow someone to enter your shoes as much as possible. So, exercise 2, accurate personal feelings. And I think because you guys did so well, I have really high expectations of you. I'm hoping you'll keep doing this. So, I feel like you don't care about me. What's wrong with it? It's a judgment. You don't care about me. So the natural thing for that person to do, if they do care about me, is to start telling me why they care, how their evidence, and it does nothing to create connection. I'm upset that you left without saying goodbye. Good? It's not super specific, but it's fine. I'm happy that you can come. It's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. You're so horrible. That's not an accurate personal feeling. That's a judgment, obviously, of somebody else. We know someone's gonna what? Put up their dukes if you tell them how horrible. You're so disgusting. Ew, right? Like, we say stuff like this. We actually do this, even if we don't mean to, and it's not effective. I feel misunderstood. Why is that one not effective? Yes, it's too general, and it is a judgment of the other person. So if you say something like that, if they don't care about you, they may be like, fine, I'm just gonna, remember in avoidance, you're like, I don't really care about this relationship, I'm not gonna say anything. Be like, maybe I do. But if someone does care about you, they are going to start giving you a list of all the things they do to show that they understand you. And it's gonna create some space. Oh, I missed it, sorry, I feel like slapping you. How could we miss that one? We know that one, that's a thought, right? A thought for an action, not a feeling. I feel good about what you did for me. It's okay, but we could make it better. Because if you're bringing up something actually that someone did well, and you would like them to repeat it, make it specific. Give them a win. Oh, when you called me on the way home from work yesterday, I felt so connected that you would take time, after a busy day, to try to talk to me. And then they're like, oh, if she can feel that good, after like a 5-10 minute talk, I'm gonna do that again. So it's not just the negative, but the positive. We want people to repeat the good stuff. So be specific so they can do it again. I'm worthless. Judgment of self. And we're probably gonna get, if someone's gonna be a cheerleader, that might be when they start, okay? So are we good with accurate personal feelings? This actually takes practice. Do we have any questions on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm worthless. Okay, so what is better?
Okay. Who's got it? Yeah.
Why do you feel worthless?
Okay, you could ask a question, but what other feeling could be about worth? I'm pushing it back because I think you guys can do it. I'm exhausted, I'm lonely, I'm wondering what my purpose is, right? It's not an easy switch, but that's gonna be there's facets of worth, and to identify it is gonna help. So if it's you asking, or saying I am worthless. Maybe the other person would be like, well, what's not going, like you're saying, what's not going right? But we'll push on that a little bit more. We're going to come up with some good options. But we don't want someone to turn into a cheerleader for us, because it doesn't create the connection. So the third, you've identified an accurate personal feeling, and you're now connecting it to a need. If you can, find a need that is more universal. Something that someone else could be like, oh, I get that. Loneliness, being frustrated, feeling like you don't know what you want, like you don't have clarity, like what am I supposed to do next in my life? Something that someone can connect to. This is your way in to the copy machine, right? I'm about to graduate and this is my last class, whatever, right? You're putting in a need. So figuring out your core needs is going to take some work. I just shared, my little preschool graduation situation. But usually, like I said, we're more aware of our unmet needs, but take an inventory of both. If you're in a difficult situation, it's good to have an understanding of both. There's an online test that actually was very enlightening for me, and I put that up there. It's called the 6 Needs Test. A pretty well-known psychologist named Chloe Mendane. She is the developer of this. Very funny. So my family is now subject to all my social psychology stuff that I like. So we all took the 6 Needs Test. And I thought it was funny that I was super high on uncertainty. I actually like having surprises. Not the guy behind the bushes thing, but good surprises. So what was funny, though, is when other family members were really high in certainty. They need to know what's going to go on, when it's going on. So if I fly by the seat of my pants sometimes, it creates conflict. It could become contentious, but just certainty versus uncertainty and understanding the main people in my life is helpful. So I'm like, okay, this person's starting to get anxious because they don't know what's coming. Nonviolent communication, this other list is from a website from Nonviolent Communication. Just to start jogging your mind. It's not just, food, love, belonging. Like, you have other needs, and especially as you mature and go through different adult development stages. We're so good about talking about childhood and teenage development, but there's lots of stages of development. So we already talked about needs. What are some of your needs? What difference would it make? I want us to go, I like this lady. Cautions. Sometimes we confuse our needs and wants, right? You may want something in the moment, and that's where you're going to have to conflict triage. That's what I call it. If I go to the ER, or if I'm the ER doctor, I've got to figure out who needs help first. What's the highest demand conflict situation, right? So the tricky part is you've got to do that for yourself, but be very careful about evaluating someone else's needs or wants. We can very quickly jump to assumptions about someone else's needs or wants. Just be very careful that you don't misjudge. Kind of remember the tentative asking. Just leave it a little bit like the other person decides. Unless you're in a position of stewardship, you probably do have to decide, right? With my kids, I for sure have to go needs and wants, and I have to make a judgment. So while many needs are universal, we don't always experience the intensity of each need at the same time. So say I'm feeling really fulfilled and like self-actualized, and maybe my husband is not so much. We have a different need balance, right? So I have to adjust my expectations, or I have to at least take into account that we may not have the same needs at the same time, okay? I've asked this many times. Keep it in mind. Examples. So instead of saying, I was so irritated why didn't they let me know they canceled the meeting? I could say, when they canceled the meeting without letting me know, I was really irritated because I would have gone ahead on another project if I had known, right? I can start to relate to that. Oh, that's annoying. Like you kind of had to wait around and you couldn't move forward with what you wanted to do. And then instead of, no, why didn't you come over last night? I say, I was really disappointed when you didn't come over because I wanted to talk through something hard that happened to me at work. Do you see how those are, they're very different, and the other person is, again, empathy and perspective taking are actual skills that we have to learn. I don't just learn them because I'm around nice people. I actually have to learn how to take the position of somebody else, and this helps perspective taking. So, let's see how we do. You annoy me when you leave your stuff on the floor. What's missing? There's no need. All I've said is I'm annoyed, right? I'm not preparing to ask someone to meet my need. I feel angry when you say that because I am wanting respect and I hear your words as an insult. I'm like, I gotta memorize this one because this is a good one, right? There's a need attached. I feel frustrated when you're late. What's missing? There's no need. Maybe there isn't a need, and maybe I'm just trying to control you, but usually there is a need behind the desire to be late, even if it's just like I feel anxious when I'm not at the airport 2.5 hours early. That's not me. I kind of like just to run in there, right? Okay, I'm sad that you won't be coming over tonight because I wanted to spend some time with you, right? That's very different than saying, why didn't you come over last night? You just sat, playing video games or whatever it is. Express the need. Little things people say sometimes hurt me. I have no idea how to help you with that, right? But we say sometimes we're actually not clear on our needs, so we say stuff like that, right? It doesn't mean we're bad. It's going to be hard for another person to respond to us. So I feel scared when you raise your voice. Yeah, what could we add to that? Because my dad yelled a lot when I was little and I felt nervous, or whatever it is, right? Because I need to know that I'm safe when we're having a difficult conversation. Add the need. I'm grateful that you offered me a ride because I needed to get home quickly. Good? Good. Okay, any questions on adding a need? So accurate personal feeling, attach the need. Okay. Yes?
Rephrase, so what would be a better way to say number one? I need to have a clean home, and I am annoyed when you leave your stuff on the floor. How would you say it?
Okay, if this is me, I'll take this one. You annoy me when you leave your stuff on the floor because I don't feel like I can get to other activities in the house until everything's put in order. Or I like to have everything in order. That's my need. It's not the other person's need. Another thought?
Would you also say with that one to use the term, like to start it out with you, wouldn't that tend to cause the other person to feel defensive? Because you're not really taking ownership for, I am annoyed. It's not that they are.
Yes, yes. I'm annoyed when there's stuff all over the floor because I get anxious and I can't get on to my real work until the house is put together. That's my need. Thank you very much. Sorry, sometimes when you're here up at the top, it just, things go out of your brain. So I need to be reminded by beautiful people like you. Anyway, okay, are we good with that? Yes, you had a question.
Doesn't just the fact that you start with you annoy me all of a sudden set them into they're not going to hear anything else you say after that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't even say you annoy me. It's like I would be happier if this could be picked up so I could do that, or.
Yes, okay, yes, definitely make it your own need. I'm irritated or I get frustrated when there's stuff left on the floor, right? You're trying to make it so the other person is not immediately going to fight you, right? Are we good with that? Okay. So, step 4. I like the sinking hand in the water because sometimes we've gone through this process and then we fail to make the request. Why would we bring up and go through all these steps if we weren't going to try to improve our lives and our connection with other people? Don't go through all the effort if you're not going to, it's leading to this final step, right? So we use specific and concrete action language. Do you remember that you don't brush your teeth often enough or whatever it was? How about, I'm really concerned about I'm talking to a child, like you're gonna get cavities. Would you be willing to brush your teeth before you hopped on the bus each morning? Very concrete. The kid can say yes or no and be like, no. And then we have another situation on hand, right? But the expectation is clear, and so they're able to please me, and I'm also able to understand them, right? So include your feelings and your needs with the request, and then I want to say, we'll talk about this, differentiating between requests and demands. If you were here yesterday, we talked about that. A request is an invitation. A demand is, if you don't do this, X, right? I'm going to bring it up in front of your in-laws, whatever it is, whatever threat you have out there, that's making it a demand. So, here we go. Exercise 4. I want you to understand me. Could I disappoint you very easily? Yes. There's nothing tangible, concrete that I can grab onto. So if I am the person, so say my son or my daughter has just said, I want you to understand me. And I say, yes, I want to understand you. The next situation where that person, that child feels misunderstood, they're going to be like, we just had this conversation and look what you're doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what I did. Like, what was I supposed to do? We want to equip the people we're talking to with very specific action items that we want it, do you remember from yesterday? Yesable. We want it yesable. I can say yes and be confident that I have heard you and you're going to be pleased when I do it, right? So we're going to have to be, like, maybe I just want you to, would you be willing, after we have a long conversation, would you be willing to just paraphrase what you heard me say so I can make sure that we understood each other? It's a lot more words, but it's a lot more specific, right? So I'm translating what's in my head, my expectation, into actual language. 2, yes?
So is it true that sort of most conflicts come from a failure to have an understanding of what the expectations are of each other?
I wouldn't say all of them. Sometimes people don't care either, right? Like, I think if they try. Yeah, I think in a relationship of trust, right, where both people are committed, I think it's often an unspoken need. So making it, I think everything in the dark, if you bring it out to the surface, then you can actually deal with it. But if I don't know what you need, I don't think I can ever really please you perfectly. So I think in a trusting relationship where both people are committed, I think that can happen. And then we have all the layers of caring, not caring, skills, not skills, right? And that would, but to your question, yes, expectations of need are, I think, at the heart of it. Does that answer your question? Or, okay. Are we good going to the next? Okay, will you tell me one thing that I did that you like? It's specific. Could I turn that question into a really nasty thing? Will you just tell me one thing that you like about me? It could be, any of these phrases, any of these skills, if you have insincere intent and you're hostile and you use a negative tone, it could all backfire on you, right? So you have to make sure you're in a place that you can be, give that peaceable gift, right? Say, I'm just feeling really lonely right now, and I just need to hear something about me that I've done right. would you be willing to just tell me one thing that you appreciate about me? That's really different, right? And just be like, you never tell me anything that I'm doing good. I have no idea what you actually think of me. Can you tell me at least one thing that you like that I do? Those are different, right? So make sure you make that distinction. So I love this one. I'd like you to feel more confidence in yourself. What am I supposed to do with that? I have no idea what you mean. Does that mean you want me to look you in the eyes? Does it mean you want me to, like, say hello to your friends when they come over instead of just sitting on the computer and doing my own thing, right? We want it to be yesable. We want the other person to be like, oh, you just, like, so when we're having a conversation, you just like me to turn my body towards you so you know I'm listening? And that kind of demonstrates, like, confidence that I can have a real conversation. And then the kid's like, yeah, right? So you want someone to be able to say yes. Be specific. I'd like you to let me do my own thing. This is one of my favorites because I love to do my own thing. Do I know what that is? I don't, because I like uncertainty, right? I'm going to figure it out. So that the other person is going to fail. We don't bring up issues so that we can have the other person fail. That's not why we bring it up. We're bringing it up because we want them to succeed. So if it's like, hey, would you be willing to let me apply to a psychology PhD program, quit my job while I have 5 kids at home, and become a professor? The answer was yes. That was pretty cool. But to me, that's my idea of doing my own thing. Your own thing could be something completely different, right? So make sure you're specific and that you actually know what you want. So 5, I'd like you to be, this one I love, I'd like you to be honest with me about my performance. Why? I don't want you to be honest right now with me about my performance. I might cry. So I was laughing because, I'm not supposed to say what my book is, but I wrote this book a while back, and I gave it to my editor. And do you know how many edits I got back? I think I got like 10,000. And that was, like, I actually had a hard time opening up the document at first because I was like, wow, 10,000, like, wow, I thought I got A's in my writing class, but 10,000, that's bad, right? So when you ask someone for feedback, this is about feedback in particular, be specific about what you want feedback about. Like when I'm mediating, I have people observe me to learn, right? But I'm also still learning. Each time is different. I'll ask them and say, I'm really working on how to ask better questions and leaving a pause after I ask the question. So instead of getting all this crazy feedback that would destroy me, because it might come out, I'm totally not expecting all this negative feedback, I get the feedback on the very thing that I asked for. So be careful. How often have you said something that's not so nice, bless your heart, to be honest, and then you say this awful thing? Well, like, we have these expressions that allow for just garbage to come out, and it's painful, right? Don't say, bless his heart, oh, he's just a piece of work. Like, right? Like, we don't want to go into that direction. Someone had a comment up here. No?
I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be nasty. It could be a truthful thing that you're not intending to be an ugly thing, because the first time they asked me, just please tell me. So I finally expressed something, and it wasn't cruel or
Sure.
it was something I needed that had to do with him. And it never failed that every, unfortunately, argument stuff when we were married, it came up every time, and all in my mind was, I should have never said it. And I didn't say it in cool, I didn't say it to be ugly.
Yes.
He was sort of like, please tell me what I can do to change. So
Yeah.
say something simple and kindly that in my mind, a lesson forever. People really don't want to hear the truth. But I tell myself, people don't really. And just because it's true doesn't mean you need to say it.
Yeah. Usually you want someone to be asking for it, right? They've even, like, this is just a little aside that I loved in this is in the Power of Bad book. People actually want bad news first and then good news. I thought that was interesting. 75% of people actually want you to tell them the bad news, then the good news, which may not always be what we think. So, 6, I would like you to turn off the computer forever. Sometimes we say stuff like that, like, don't get back on that computer, right? It's a negotiation. We've got to be realistic. You can ask for the moon, but then it almost makes it ridiculous that you even asked it in the first place, and you kind of ruined the momentum that you have built through the other steps, right? Don't ask for something that you know is going to set the person off and be like, okay, I was listening to you, I was connecting with you, and now you're trying to push me against a wall, right? Yes?
What if it's a child? Maybe it's not the computer, but maybe it's a different request. And how can you use an I statement, I would like this, and not get an excuse or a defense back?
That's where you've said the steps before. Hey, I noticed that right before dinner, you're going on the computer, and we like to eat at 5:30. I feel kind of frustrated when I've prepared dinner and it's all ready, and I need everybody to come at a certain time. Would you be willing to not get on the computer right before dinner so we don't have that issue that comes up? Does that make sense? It's a lot more words, but you've used those steps to lead up, and then they get it why, right? I don't know, does that answer your question? Okay. 7, sorry, I just love these because I do these too, and I'm trying not to do them. I would like you to show respect for my privacy. What does that mean? Does that mean like knock on your door before I enter? Does it mean don't put your pictures on Instagram? Because I will. No, I mean, it could be anything. So if I'm going to ask you to respect my privacy, I just say, hey, I'm actually not comfortable with you putting, like when I'm 39 weeks pregnant, I don't like those pictures. Could you not put those on, right? Maybe that's what I'm thinking of with privacy. Maybe it's simply, hey, I'm reading this book and I don't like it when you're leaning over me trying to see what I'm reading. Like whatever it is, let the person say yes. Have it be something that they actually can say yes to. And then the last one, I'd like you to reach out to clients more often. If I'm the boss and I tell that to the person working for me, are they probably going to fail? Because often we talked about is too ambiguous. Say, hey, would you spend 2 to 3 hours per week of your allotted time just reaching out to clients with phone calls? Okay, I can do that. I can log the calls I made. I can let you know what the response is, and we're clear. Clear, Brene Brown, if you know her, she says clear is kind. When we're clear, it shows definite kindness. So, cautions. And these come from yesterday when we talked about anger as well. So be very specific so the other person can actually say yes. I've pushed on that idea throughout this. If we try to punish others when they say no, we're making demands. Punishment comes in a lot of different forms. If I roll my eyes when you bring it up with your, at your in-laws' house, whatever it is, if you're trying to make me feel like I'm like a bad person, you're trying to shame me, I know it wasn't a request. So the next time you use your little education week 4-step process on me, I'm going to shove it back, right? Like, this is going to happen. So don't do it, right? Don't turn it and twist it and compete with someone when you're trying to collaborate. Remember those are the 5? I can avoid, accommodate, compromise, compete, and collaborate. This is collaboration. You are having a conversation. You are going to share back and forth. You've shared, and then you're going to have the other person hopefully share back with you. So don't compete when you're actually trying to collaborate. So guilt-tripping, gossip, sarcastic comments, and continually bringing up the other person's refusal to comply are signs of demands, not requests. It's normal and natural to want to retaliate. It's like there's wiring in it, like, oh, remember when I asked you for that and you didn't do it? Like, don't do it. If you're actually trying to connect, create connection, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Like, go through the whole process. So, 4 steps. You share that concrete observation without an evaluation. You're like a scientist. You notice something, and you're only bringing it up because either you don't like what's happening, or maybe you do like what's happening, and you're hoping the person will repeat it. So you're like, oh, when you sent me flowers on Valentine's Day, even though you know it's a made-up holiday and it's a big marketing scheme, I felt so loved, right? Like there are things like this that we do, right? But if I relay it, then the other person's, even if they think it's a marketing scheme, they're like, oh, I like Emily. Emily likes flowers. I can do that. No big deal, right? Pay the, $30, whatever it is that day. Express an accurate personal feeling. Come to know yourself well enough and come to know the English language well enough that you can express it in a way that other people can understand. Connect it with a need. Remember the 6 needs assessment? That may be a help to you. If you can remember that my jokes about uncertainty and certainty, when those differ, you're going to have to negotiate that, and then making a specific request. So you can take a picture of this, but this is your test for at home. Can you translate with this given situation in the parentheses, moving from that kind of rhetorical, accusatory type of phrase, like, why can't you just listen for a second? See if you can turn that into a demand. I mean, not a demand, sorry. See what I mean? Like, this is bad. This is bad. It's Friday. Okay, so that's your little homework if you want. And I have a challenge for you. I want you to try out these 4 steps today. I want you to start trying them out today. Even a small conflict or a small need that you have, whether it's, calling someone on the phone, you want to figure out where you're going to dinner, and I want you to figure out which steps are easiest for you. My guess is some of these things are already kind of part of you, and in your best relationships, some of it already flows, right? You may already be doing some of this in your best relationships. So the trick is to take what you're doing in your best and try to use it in some of the conflict-ridden cases. And then which steps will take more practice. So thankful that you're here today. I testify in the name of Jesus Christ that your effort, your honest, sincere effort to follow Christ and how you actually behave every day and interacting with both the people you love and maybe the people you don't feel as much love with, that it will bring connection, belonging, joy, and confidence. The confidence that God talks about, that when we see him, we will be like him, because I know that he interacts with us in these ways, and he addresses essential need, and he does it to preserve our dignity. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.